Hello everybody, Gisele Grenier here. In this video lesson, think of it as a part 2 to the atmospheric perspective question that Michael Land had. And with this, we're going to be focusing on a seascape. Now the seascape is, you can think it's a more simple to do than the landscape one that we did before. The other thing is that because we're working with water and you have all those ripples, sometimes that can get a little bit confusing when it comes to values because the ripples of the water are white. And we know from the last video lesson is that when things come forward, they're usually darker. So what we're going to be doing is using, what I'm using is a Decor Traditions white gesso to prime the paper. And then I'm changing up my chromatic black to phthalo green blue, phthalo blue, raw umber, and opaque titanium white. Now don't forget, you can also substitute white paint. You can use gesso instead if you want. So I'm going to put these aside, and I'm working on the other side of my journal. Now with these colors here, just to another little recap. So although we're not working with color per se, we're still working with a chromatic black. That this black that we're working will lean more towards a blue-green. So phthalo green blue is a green that leans towards blue, phthalo blue is a blue that leans towards green, and raw umber is a brown that this one here leans a bit more to the green side. All right, so and in the last video I already showed you how to prime this, so if you missed that video you can go back and watch it. But just using the white gesso, and I used a big fat filbert, and I just coated it with that. A little bit of the violet is showing through. I'm not going to worry about it. And I moved my table so you can see more of the palette. So phthalo green blue, raw umber, and white. And I'm going to start off with a big flat, and I'm still having to move to the left. I'm going to have to make some more changes again. Let's start making our chromatic black. Now you can use a palette knife for this because they're phthalo colors, they're high staining. Let's see how far we can go with this. So there's our phthalo green. Start off with equal parts of everything. The phthalo green and phthalo blue are transparent. Raw umber is opaque. So that's going to play an important part of our mix. That although the raw umber is opaque, the phthalo colors will take over. At face value, it looks like chromatic black. But what do we have to do to see the true underlying colors? Pop quiz. You can see that this is really on the blue side. So blue-green, so we're going to add more raw umber. I didn't answer the pop quiz question. I'm hoping you guys will answer. Okay, more on the green side. Add more. I'm thinking it'd probably be the whole thing. And if what's another chromatic black that you can make if it's not with blue? You can make it with green and alizarin crimson. That makes a really nice chromatic black as well. Very intense. Okay, so let's add a little bit of white to that. This is still much more on the green side, but look how pretty that is. So when we're working with a landscape, although we're doing this as a study, skies are not green. But we're working a value study. Keep that in mind. It's a value study. Let's go with more brown. I'm going to put it right in. And what it is because the phthalo green is really overpowering. So I'm thinking it was probably 4 parts raw umber to 1 part phthalo green to 1.5 parts of phthalo blue. That might be enough. And if this isn't enough, I'm going to show you a trick to further neutralize that. You have to really mix this well. And you'll need a good dollop of paint when creating your value studies. And I know I'm spending quite a bit of time on there because you need to know your values in order to do them properly. That's still pretty green, isn't it? It's actually not too bad. If we just took brown with white and then went in here. Yeah, so I think another hit of brown would work with that. Still on the green side, which is what we want. But what you could also do, and I answered that before, you can hit it with a little bit of alizarin crimson to further neutralize that. And I'm going to do that over here. Whoops. Forgot to open that the right way. Just to show you that you don't always have to work black and white per se. Let's take a little bit of that over here. Let's take a speck of that. Let's get a little bit of white in there. Look at that. Look at the difference that made just by adding a speck of alizarin crimson. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? Holy smokes. Didn't take much, did it? So I'm going to take a little bit of that and put it right in there. Not good. I didn't want to add any more raw umber to this because the amount I would have to add, because this should be enough paint. Let's pick up a little bit more crimson. I may actually have to do the whole thing. So 4 parts raw umber, 1.5 parts of phthalo blue, 1 part phthalo green, and for the alizarin crimson, I'm thinking it's probably going to be half a part. Yeah, it's going to be half a part. I'm going to need the whole thing. Now, if you're not sure about doing all these color mixes, don't forget to go to the color mixing course and challenge, which gives you everything you need to know. Now, this chromatic black is a very complicated chromatic black. I've never done it to this degree in the course, but just to show you how flexible you can be. And with working on a white palette, you can see where the colors are going. I have a visitor, and there she goes. Okay, where are we here? Joe's gonna go shoveling the snow and she's not happy. She came in here to hide. All right, so I've got my mix here and now we're gonna make our gray. So we're gonna work with the sky top down lighter and the bottom dark down light. So think of it, the middle of where the sky horizon and ground horizon meet, that's gonna be the lightest part. So we're going to start with a lighter color first. So I can put that really anywhere because these don't matter. I need a good amount of light. So I'm going to get everything wet first. This is going to be challenging for you guys because this is more on the green side. This is kind of like a lead up of values because you can't always think of values and practice in pure black and white. When you work with chromatic blacks, it's where you start leaning in towards understanding the values with color. So I coated the whole thing with, not quite white, it's just a little bit darker. Then I'm going to pick up a little bit more chromatic black. A little bit more than that. More white, because I need more white. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to start bottom, work my way up. A little bit more black. A little bit more black. There we go. And it's important to work left to right. We're doing a seascape. And it's already tacking up. Oh, for goodness sakes. I'm going to go in the chisel edge. Left, right, left, right, left, right. Okay, I think I need to go a little bit darker than that. I'm going to grab a little bit more dark. A little bit more dark. Come down here. Left, right, left, right. Okay, grab a little bit more dark. More than that. And I will eventually have to change to a smaller brush. Remember that the waves coming forward will look a little bit bigger because you're closer to them. Like if you picture yourself into a real life situation, and as they go further back, they get kind of softer and softer because it's further in the distance. Now you have to also decide, which I should have covered before, do you want more water showing or more sky showing? And I'm going to focus this one here. Oh, too much dark. Get into some white. I'm going to focus this one more on water. And the horizon line doesn't have to be perfectly straight because water goes like this. I'm going to even that out. I'm going to make it relatively straight, but it doesn't have to be perfectly straight. Okay, that's a pretty good. That's pretty good. That's why I was getting funny colors, because I didn't mix it right. All right, now for the sky. Well, it's a bit dark for the sky. We want to start off with mid-range. Now the sky we can do dark and then make that gradation go downwards. And depending on how you want to do your values, you may want to do them wet on wet, or you may want to dry brush them. See, I'm just fading that down, not having to go all the way down because that color that was there was correct. Bring a little bit more dark down, just fade that in. The sky, depending on how you do them, I like to skip around with the sky to simulate clouds. Okay, that worked out a little bit better than I thought it would. Let's get a little bit more dark in there. But I love doing this wet on wet. With acrylics, that's a little bit more difficult. And don't worry if it takes you an hour to do this. It's values. I would rather you spend 5 hours working on values than 30 minutes in finishing a painting. There. So you can see they've got some, so we've got dark, it's not quite dark, but don't forget, acrylics are going to dry darker. So dark to light. Then we have more of a mid-tone, mid-range gray to dark, but the value change isn't as strong here. That's going to happen when we start working with the ripples in the water. So I want to get this a little bit darker. Keep working in the same mixture. Starting to get tacky. X strokes like this. Just to darken that up a little bit more. And I can probably come in here, same thing, but this one here I'm going to feather that in. And then X strokes on the flat side of the brush to blend. So the X strokes I was doing here was on the chisel edge like this. The sky I was doing like this. So sky was this way, water's this way. I could have done the water with the brush this way, but the strokes would be kind of big, and this is a smaller study. All right. I'm just going to blot the excess paint out of the brush and rinse that out. I'm just going to get a bit of a bigger brush. Now, these brushes should not be super hard, but I'm going to take now the white, and I can go into the existing pile. I want something a little bit lighter, and I can come in here and the same X strokes, not too wide. That's a bit wide. And I'm just not going to cover everything. want to try to go to the top. Keep that background soft. Not going to quite go all the way to the edge. Just going to straighten that out just a little bit. Keep it soft. Now, when I was on holidays, one particular horizon I saw almost like a black line going across. And in all honesty, it depends on your reference material. So right now I'm concentrating on values, not per se a realistic seascape, because we need some type of reference material for that. My goal right now is to get you to understand the atmospheric perspective. So we're setting this water back. And you notice I'm doing it nice and slow. Okay. Now we come into the sky. I'm going to put a little bit more of that light right here. I'm going to skip around because I want this to simulate maybe some clouds. Like that. Now I can go in to bring a little bit of dark in there, that same value. Let's get something mid-range. Let's go with something a little bit darker than that. And you're just going to hit some pockets, almost like just like zigzags, where the waves are a little bit harder, a little bit bigger. We want to contain the painting, so we're going to make the corners a little bit darker. Same with the edge. And the general thing of things are darker as they come forward, again, it all depends on your reference, whether you're painting live or painting from a photograph. Always, always rely on your reference. And look at the way I loaded my brush. Just a black on the tip, good amount of paint on there, because I'm working just on the edge. Oh, the snowplows are out. Now this could also be from the perspective of where you are. Maybe you're in a boat, because typically where you're standing, that's where the shore is. And depending on your lighting, you know, whether you've got sand in there. That's not the purpose of this lesson. It's to show water coming forward and the sky going backwards. And I'm going to hit a little bit of light in there. So this is for the detail now, not to set it back, but for a little bit of the detail. Okay. I think I just got paint all over my face. And then we'll just lightly blend it. We're not going to cover waves or anything like that, because this painting is not about painting the study is not about painting water, it's about perspective. Now, if you were to take, you know, this white or this gray that I'm using and apply it everywhere, then you're not going to have that depth. But as this is drying now, I can see this is actually not too bad. I could go and make this a little bit darker as it comes forward. A little bit more gray in there. You don't want to have too much paint on there. Let's just break this up a little bit. Now I'm painting this wet on dry, because this is all dry. Just make sure you're not painting if it's tacky. So when you're painting a seascape, when it comes to the detail, layers and layers and layers are what's going to give you something more realistic. And as I'm going back, not backwards, adding a bit more white, coming in, breaking up those waves, making sure that it's light in the distance. Come back in now, blotted my brush, picked up white, and now I'm going to add those ripples in the water to make more, where it's not going to be so dark, but we're going to have more light values. But with the water, I'm using the waves as a way to lessen the darkness. So I'm kind of combining the two. Make sure I go back here and just get that really light. So your X strokes are going to be wider in the back, and then as you come forward, they're going to be a little bit more detailed. Okay, the sky is actually pretty good. I could make this actually a little bit darker, but I'm actually liking what I've got. And I'm not sure, honestly, if I'm on an angle, because this is tilted. But I could. Let's get this a little bit darker here. Whoops. So to further the detail, you really should be using a finer brush for the waves, like a smaller brush. Here we go. Just looking at this upside down to make sure I've got the horizon line. I think I've got a little bit crooked right there. Turn it around because the book, I'm on the light part, so it's tilted forward. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to get a smaller brush. It's tilted forward a little bit. And I'm going to go into a bit of the gray. Paint is very, very dry. That should be all right. Let me just turn this again. Okay, I'm going to go upside down here with that big brush. I'm going to make the sky color again. I have to adjust that. Now I'm cutting into the water. There we go. And just dry brush that up a little bit, lessening the pressure, picking up a little bit more dark. That's a bit too much. Always adjust. Remembering acrylics dry darker. And I'm just feathering this, allowing some of the light colors, the light paint show through. I know this is upside down because I'm want to make sure that I see that line. There we go. How's that? So this gives you a really good understanding as to how to, to work the sky and the water. Although it's not a mirror in the values, it doesn't need to be. As long as it shows dark to light and light to dark. And then when we have that base put in for the water, to use the power of the white to create those ripples more softly in the back, and as you come forward, they become a little bit more detailed, but it's still dark to show the depth. All right, so that's basically it. So your homework assignment is going to be to create a seascape. This particular one here, you don't have to use a photograph, just we're working with atmospheric perspective. You should see the depth going into the distance. Bonus points if you want to work from a photograph. That's completely up to you. So take a picture, post it below, and if you have any questions, post that as well. And if you have any questions, though, I need to see what you've already done so I can give you an educated answer if you're having any problems. Alrighty, so we're going to finish off with that. I'm going to let you go. Let me know what you think. And until I see you in the next lesson, stay inspired.